All right, guys, a long time ago, when I was a much younger Sean, a Sean that had a much hairier head, I worked at a dyno shop. And watching a lot of videos on YouTube lately, I see people struggle when they're on the dyno. And it's the same things over and over again that grab people up. And it was the same things that got us, I dealt with 10, 12 years ago. So I'd like to go over a few things, and maybe this will help somebody out. And maybe if you're getting ready for your first dyno tune, this is something you can use to kind of get started on some things. So my first thing is, if you're a carbureted guy, make sure they know that. Make sure that if you have an oddball unit or something, make sure you have your jets, your squirters, your pump cams, your power valves, and extra gaskets. Make sure your tuner knows that ahead of time, and if they don't have them, make sure you do, because that can be a holdup. EFI guys, make sure you had the right size fuel pump. Make sure you had the right size injectors for your power level. If you have a MAF powered car, make sure that the MAF will support the power level you're wanting. MAP guys, make sure that the MAP sensor won't be maxed out at whatever you're wanting to do. Fuel system guys, filters, put a fresh filter in the thing before you do. Check your pressures. You know, if you're running 10-year-old fuel, dump that out, put some fresh in there. On the level of fuel, bring extra fuel. Make sure the car has plenty of fuel. If you're running E85, there may not be an E85 station around. If you're running race gas, make sure you have it and it's fresh. Whatever fuel you're gonna run, make sure you have that to be there, so when the car is tuned on the proper fuel, you'll get the best tune out of it. Spark plugs. Guys, this is a simple one. Have the proper heat range. Have the gap set for what you're doing. And put a fresh set in there. It's a few bucks, but it doesn't hurt. And then forced induction guys especially, or nitrous guys, bring a spare set. That way they have them, that way they can compare them. If you need oddball tools to take them out, supply them to the tuner. You know, if you have a cut down socket that only works on number 7 cylinder, don't assume they have something like that. Make their life a little bit easier and supply it. Same with your wires. If your wires are haggard, they've been on there, they're melted, they're chafed, you know, you open up the hood at night and you see fireworks and lightning bolts everywhere, don't take it and have it tuned. Put a fresh set on there. Same thing, your cap and rotor. Give it a check, go over it, put a fresh one on it. It's cheap insurance. Nitrous guys, have your jets. Don't assume that what's in there is gonna work. Sometimes you have to change the jetting to get the air fuel where you want it to be, or to bring up or down the power level. Supercharged guys, big one, fresh belts. Have a spare belt. I've seen that stop so many tuning sessions, it's unreal. If you want to change pulleys, have the pulleys there. Same thing. If it takes a special tool to take the pulley on and off, make sure he or she, whoever's doing the tuning, has that. Turbo guys, huge thing. Wastegates. You can check them when you're putting them on. I showed a video of how to properly check your wastegates for what kind of pressure they're going to open at, and bring the extra springs with them. Go over all your clamps. Chances are, one of the things I saw a lot was mid-run, piping blows off. Mid-run, piping blows off. A lot of the times people didn't, you know, weld some nubs on them. Knurl the edge, curl up the edge, flare it, whatever you gotta do, you know, that will help. Charging system, here's another one. So, make sure your charging system works. Make sure that it's putting out the proper voltage that the car can run. Make sure that your battery is good enough to start the car. If you've got a 12-year-old battery that you have to jump every time, don't take that to your tuner. Oil. Give it a fresh oil change. That way you know the engine's healthy. That way you don't have, you know, old oil you're beating on the car, or you find out that there's metal in it, or that there's coolant in it, or something else. All your fluids, go over them. Your trans fluid, your differential fluids. I saw people had it work on a long car project and they forgot that they didn't have transmission oil in it. Twice I've seen that happen. So it's on the list of things to check. Go over that. The cooling system, that's a huge killer. Make sure that your car can run, or truck. Make sure that your fans work. Make sure you have the proper temp thermostat. If you're getting it tuned and they request a 160 thermostat, put a 160 in there. Or they know what thermostat's in there. Big thing is make sure it's bled. I've seen cars get on a dyno, make a couple pulls, and coolant is shooting out the top of them because there is a giant air pocket because the car hadn't been ran. Along with that, get a base tune from your tuner where you can run the thing for a while. Check for leaks. Check for in your fuel system, in your transmission, in your driveline. Nobody wants to deal with a car that's putting buckets of fluid underneath on their dyno. Or of any kind of fluids. Fuel, oil, transmission fluid, differential oil. Same thing. Tuning cables. Like if your car uses an oddball cable, let's say you're using a Motes quarter horse or Data or AEM, make sure that they know and have the software. If you're using an old version and you don't want it updated, have your laptop ready to go. Let's see, what else am I thinking about? Know your gear ratios. Your chassis. Make sure that the car has functioning brakes. Make sure that all the tires are bolted on, your tie rods aren't falling off, your U-joints aren't falling out. A lot of these tuners are going to want to do drivability tuning after it's done, and the car has to be safe to drive. If it's a all-out race car, and they know that, and you're worried about wide open throttle only, that's fine. But again, you should be going over this, because this thing, I just had a buddy of mine who does tuning have a drive shaft fly out. I've seen tires explode. Make sure your tires are in good condition, inflated right, and rated for the speed that you're gonna run it on the dyno. Make sure your clutch it's rated for the power level. Make sure your converter isn't gonna stall to the moon and not be able to be loaded. So all that stuff comes into play. You just wanna go over the entire car or truck or van or whatever it is and go over it. The good thing is a lot of these guys can remote tune stuff, so if you get a base tune and it's way out, they can adjust it. A lot of things can be gone over just by warming it up, and that was our number one thing was people didn't bring the right fuel or enough of the fuel. Cars overheating constantly or leaks that shut you down. You have to unstrap it, pull it forward, change fuel filters. Oh, they used too small of a fuel pump relay. It burned up. Bad wiring, bad fuses, unlabeled switches, all that stuff. These guys got to charge you for their time. And very few people out there are willing to donate it. So the more right you have your car or truck, the better off you'll be. But the same token is, you can't account for everything. There are going to be small instances where stuff happens. But the more prepared you are, the better. And a lot of guys now will have a checklist. And that's a great thing too. Have a checklist, go over your header bolts, go over your V-band clamps, just go over everything. Make sure nut and bolt the entire car. This is something you're spending money on and you want it as right as possible. You don't want to have an annoyed tuner that doesn't want to deal with you again after your car puked its guts out on his dyno or made 30 pounds of boost and he asked you to have it make 6. And then you find out the plugs on the wastegate weren't in the right spots. I've seen people leave out the extra plugs they'll put in the nipple, and on the other side it's got dual locations. That was a big one. And then the first pull you make, you're trying to watch 100 things, and that's the other thing. The dyno operator's trying to watch 100 things. You can set up safeties and everything like that, but so much happens so fast that the more right you have it, the easier it is on them. It's just kind of a public service announcement of things to watch out for, things to do on your first dyno day. And I really, check for vacuum leaks. That's a huge one too. We'd find cars that just had a raging vacuum leak and you couldn't tune it. You can't tune around it, or you shouldn't. Just things to watch out for, things to look out for and kind of keep you going. If you have an oddball shifter or something like that, make sure they know. Anything talk with them. Most of them want to give you the best tune-up or product that they can provide for you. So the better off you make it on them, the better off it'll be on you. Guys, I hope this helps you out, and hopefully, get you ready for your first dyno and get you through it. But that's, from my experience, those are the things we end up dealing with, and it makes life kind of harder on the tuning guys. I miss sometimes being on the dyno, but I don't miss dealing with all the headaches every time. When you had one that went right and worked smoothly, it was a great day. When you had one that didn't, it was just, you're trying to explain to the customer, they don't want to pay for it again. But again, you have to unstrap it. If you have a full day packed up, you have to unstrap it, move it off the lift, put another one on, and then later restrap the car. And then everybody doesn't understand that you may have a list a mile long, but to squeeze them back in, you're either going to work extra hours or they go to the back of the line, and then they don't understand it. Then you have an upset customer or something like that. But like I said, hopefully this all helps, guys. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Any of that stuff kind of really helps. Thanks.